we'll just let them join us when they do. So, um, hello everyone. This is Aaron Whitberger. I'm currently the Vice President of Professional Development for the Bluegrass IIBA chapter, and want to welcome everybody here with us today as we have an exciting time here with Dr. Joe Perez. So Dr. Joe's one of my favorite presenters, very dynamic and very, you know, has very good points to make about all his content. One of my favorite authors and everything. So welcome, Dr. Joe.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Appreciate your kind words, sir. You're one of my favorites too, by the
I'll,
way.
I'll charge you later.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's getting the screen here set up and everything. So um, if you haven't told us so far, feel free to put in the chat where you're joining for us from today. I see some common names out there that've been here before. Welcome back. And kind of seeing some new names. So people I not necessarily know. So thank you for joining us. So love to have you. And welcome again. So, Dr. Joe,
Yes, sir.
let's go ahead and talk about um, narratives, numbers to narratives that transforms businesses. So, a great book. This is like the third book that I know of that you have done since I've been following you and everything. But I'm sure it's not the third book. You've done others before, haven't you?
Well, there are two other books that I co-authored. One of them is called Unleashing Firepower, an anthology put together by, excuse me, Coach MJ Tolan. He himself has written probably about eight or nine. Um, Most of those he's got co-authored. Some he has written on his own. But one of those he asked me to join 11 other authors to put the book together. And recently I co-authored the Evolving Analyst. That one just came out last week. It was compiled by Marcus Udakang. Uh, Awesome guy. I saw him at he's from Calgary or lives in Calgary, Canada. I had one of the keynotes at the DAMA Edmonton conference where I featured, where my book was featured and so forth. And he asked me to do the foreword to the book and also contribute one of the chapters. So it's called The Evolving Analyst. But besides those two, yes, you are correct. I've written three books of my own. The first one being a very short ebook. I was kind of dipping my toe in the water, and I didn't know how about whether I should write a book or whatever. And it was like 30 something pages. Wasn't even big enough for Amazon to print. And little did I know that one went and scored a #1 new release on Amazon. I just blew me away. I thought, okay, well, let me go whole hog. And of course, you guys were so kind and gracious to interview me last year on the madness behind the method, and then this
Yep.
one, numbers to narratives that transform business. That is my whoops, I disappeared. That is my third. That is my third book. Yes, that I
All
myself
right.
have written. So five altogether, three that I've written, and two that I co-authored, and one more on the back burner. Maybe we can talk about that a little later,
Hey, okay.
or at the end, or
Um,
whenever. Yeah.
yeah, and I know you went to Paris to launch
Yes.
numbers to narratives, and I've kind of seen you kind of globetrotting across the globe. You've been to two or three, four conferences here in the last couple months, and
Yes,
I
sir.
see all your videos you're posting out there to LinkedIn about your international travels. I did like you talking about how French fries, when you were in Paris, you
I
were
remember
there
that.
eating a burger with French fries and noting that French fries were not created by French,
Right.
um, but those particular French fries were cooked by a Frenchman.
That's
Uh,
right. In a French restaurant. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I don't know how you tied that back to data, but
I
it
did because
it was a good
sometimes,
video.
yeah, I think sometimes you know, you have to be ready for the unexpected, and I was not expecting to eat hamburgers and French fries in a French restaurant or something like that. I forget exactly what I did, but yeah, I always somehow find a way to tie it back to data.
Yes, you do. And yeah, they were French fries were created by in Greece, right? Because you cook them in Greece.
You cook them in grease. That's right.
So
He's good. He's here all week, guys. Yeah,
I'll be here all week.
that's right. My man,
So
Aaron.
so before we dive into the content of the book, let's talk about what was the catalyst for writing from numbers to narratives that
Mhm.
transformed business.
Sure. That's an excellent question. Excuse me.
I
Great
can do
question,
that
Aaron.
from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it it really felt like the path was sort of carved out for me. Okay, by the grace of God, by providence, whatever you want to call it. But for years, as I kind of alluded to, folks had asked me, colleagues, audience members, people who hear me speak and so forth. They had been encouraging me. They kept saying over and over again, "You got to write a book. Got to write a book. Got to write a book, Dr. Joe." And that was based on the success, thank God, the success, the impact of my keynotes, workshops, and other
Hmm.
sessions that I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have over the years. And that encouragement became a real possibility when a publisher approached me after the release of the second book, the Madness Beyond the Method we talked about earlier, the one about professional development. That one
Yeah.
was published in March of 2024. And the huge success in that one was too, also number one new release on Amazon. But to me, it was clear the demand was there for me to do a deep dive into data storytelling, data decision making. And so going from there, the structure of the book was inspired by three of my most popular keynotes, with the title of each major section of my book corresponding to the titles of each of those three keynotes. And then
Interesting.
the main points that came out of the keynotes, well, those turned into the chapters in the book. So 11 chapters all together, but what was truly amazing, and this wasn't even planned at all, Aaron, because, the idea for these three keynotes came at different points in time, over a period of about 5 or 6 years. But what was amazing to me, it was just how perfectly these three disparate, separate topics, all on data, of course, but somehow they wove together into a comprehensive whole. Okay. And, while I was working on the book, it felt like that those three topics were always meant to be created or to be connected together. Natural progression for the reader. So here's how the whole thing unfolds chronologically, topically, logically, however you want to think of it. Just to high level overview. Okay. Start off with the fundamentals of effective data storytelling. That's part one. Leveraging brains and beauty. No, beauty and brains for effective data storytelling. Okay. Now, once you have mastered that visual and analytical precision that's necessary for you to be able to tell a story with your data, going from concept to reality, and you know how to tell that story behind the data, and you know to do so in a compelling manner, well, then the natural progression after that, once you got that down pat, is to shift your focus inward. Okay. And you start looking at a data-driven decision-making mindset. All right. And I see that as a requirement, not an option, um, for BAs and others. That leads me to part two, driving decisions with data. All right. Once you've got that mindset figured out, the data-driven decision-making mindset, I mean, Okay, then the progression after that, well, it should logically come to its culmination. The practical application, the outgrowth, if you will, the ultimate goal, which is bringing data to life. That's part three. Excuse me. And that's where I expound upon my framework for sustained organizational impact. I see these three parts as a complete journey as a whole, from the visual presentation of data at the outset, right, on the one side, all the way to the end, the final strategic outcome when you bring it to life on the other side. Okay, so that's how I see it.
All right. And yeah, I think you do very well in taking people through the three chapters very methodically
Mhm.
and do decision making based on data and how that can drive business decisions. So,
Indeed.
um, I just got a pop up that I just got a LinkedIn connection request by somebody that is here with us today.
Oh,
So
cool.
anybody who wants to do that, I am Aaron Wittenberger. Pretty easy to find me on LinkedIn. If I get a chance, I'll put my profile in the chat. But I plan on talking with Dr. Joe here. I'm sure Dr. Joe will be glad to connect with you
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. Please do connect
So,
with me.
you
JW
know,
Perez is at the end of the URL for me at LinkedIn. I want to say the link was also might have been in the reg. I don't remember if it was or not. It might have been, but
yeah,
yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
easy to
sure
find
now.
yeah, that's okay. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn.
Yep, he is as well. He is in North Dakota, um, North Dakota, North Carolina.
Okay. Wow,
Big
they're coming from
difference.
a long ways.
He's in North Carolina. I am in
All right.
Kentucky. Um, I'm more in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, but I do live in Kentucky. So we're easy to find if you want to connect with us. If you want to connect with each other, feel free to put your LinkedIn profile out in the chat and just connect with each other. I mean, we're all about our community
Yes.
connecting together in that. So find a new friend here.
Yep.
So I think I lost my place of what we were talking about. But yeah, this really gets into storytelling and that. And I know we've had you here 4 or 5 times to
Mhm.
present to our chapters. I know you've been keynote, I think, at our last two conferences, and you owe me a presentation for the 2026 conference if you're available that date. Um,
I might not be available. I'm sorry.
But yeah, a lot of the topics that I've heard you speak on, I see in this book, as well as I've seen in the madness behind the method, and that about the six pillars and the five L's, and
Yeah.
things that I've heard you do keynote, or you've come and spoke at our chapter to our community, and we really appreciate you doing all of that. So,
You're
and
very
and how
kind, sir.
you
Thank you.
bring these into the books are very nice, and that's a nice continuation and kind of brings the picture together. I really like how you do that.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind of you to say.
All right. So in this book, From Numbers to Narratives That Transform Business. Um, the first section, you really focus on data storytelling. Love
Yes,
it. And that. So, which is central to BA's work. We
it is.
have to tell stories, um, get our data to tell stories or our process. Sometimes we'll talk about that. Um, but you introduce a five-stage framework for this process.
Hmm.
Could you walk us through the framework and specifically address why maintaining the right perspective is so crucial?
Yes, it is. It is it's a very crucial thing, Aaron. Um, it is a critical area. I see it that way. But you know, excuse me, the first section of the book, it's all about teaching the reader how to construct a reliable and compelling visual argument for their data. That's data storytelling in a nutshell. All right, that five-stage framework that I introduce in this section. You can call them the stages of the spectrum. You can call it the spectrum of data storytelling. Some people, yeah, right. I progress, right? You got raw data on the one side, okay, all the way through to effective business action on the other. It's designed to make sure that you never lose your analytical integrity, okay? And you see, Aaron, for BAs especially, as you mentioned, we're constantly having to translate technical details into business impact, right?
Right.
This framework that I've developed ensures that every data visualization has a clear purpose and destination. Now, within that framework, the um, the importance of maintaining the right perspective, as you asked, that simply cannot be overstated. You know, I have a lot of fun showing examples of some pretty silly looking graphs, either intentionally or accidentally skew and distort the data. Things like truncated y-axes that exaggerate a small change over time, pie charts where the numbers that are depicted, when you add them up, they're greater than 100. Crazy, or visualizations that violate the principle of proportionality. That's Tufte's lie factor, I call it. Well, that's not I don't call it, it's not original with me, but that's how it's stated in that section. Okay. And these examples that I offer demonstrate that if you misuse the visual tool, whatever tool you happen to be using, the whatever chart you come up with that you create, when you do that, you create a false reality when you forget about perception. See, the brain is hardwired to find patterns. We've been doing that ever since we were little kids. Okay, and if the chart that you've drawn, that you've created, distorts the data, distorts the perception, well, then the person making decision is going to derive a false insight from that false data, from that distorted perception. See, we all know that distorted false data leads to false insight, right? False insight leads to false assumptions. False assumptions lead to wrong conclusions. Wrong conclusions lead to wrong decisions. And wrong decisions, well, you're going to get stuck with crazy consequences that nobody wants to deal with. Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
exactly. That's a pretty long rabbit hole to fall into. My point, it could have all been avoided if somebody would have just taken the time to consider perception, take care of the distorted data at the very beginning, at the very headwaters. All right, business analysts. Well, guess what? We are the bridge between the technical data on the one side and the stakeholders' understanding of it on the other. And if that bridge is built crooked, or if it, falls down, the journey's compromised. Okay, when you focus on correct perspective, that is making sure the beauty is supported by analytical brains, right? The art is supported by the science. Well, then we're going to give decision makers a clear, unbiased view of reality. The insight that they derive. Okay, um, it becomes their own insight, right? It's based on correctly structured data, and that, my friends, builds confidence and speeds up the decision process, which is what we all want. And all that comes from having the right perspective, Aaron.
Yes, absolutely. So, fully agree with you on that. And very good points in that. So, appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So, the title, the first, you titled the first section, Leveraging Beauty and Brains.
Right.
You gave that talk to our community. I
Yes,
remember
I
very
did.
well in that. So,
Yes,
um,
I did. That's what it's based on. Yeah.
and this implies a balance between the art and the science of data storytelling.
Right.
How would you instruct readers to navigate the classic tug of war, making sure that the visual appeal doesn't override the analytical integrity?
Wow. That's good. I like that. You know what, Aaron? Okay, this question gets to the very heart of the age-old argument in data visualization. That is it more important that the thing look good or that it work correctly, right? Is it pretty or is it right? Or can it be both? My approach is pretty firm. All right. Data storytelling is a combination of art and science, brains and beauty. You cannot have one without the other. All right. The beauty, that's the art, right? The design, the color, the clarity of the chart's form. All right. The brains, well, that's the science, the correct statistical structure, the appropriate data visualization choice, what chart, the accuracy of the functions being used, right? So you got form and function, beauty and brains, art and science. It does sound like a tug of war, as you so eloquently pointing out, but the key to navigating this tug of war is to understand the hierarchy. Yes, of course, beauty is extremely important, right? That chart needs to look good. It needs to be appealing and visually compelling, but the brains must always dictate the beauty. The function must always inform, yeah, well, the form, you know, right? You see, okay, you can have the prettiest chart in the world, all right, prettiest chart you ever seen. But if the underlying math is wrong, or the data is skewed, or the choice of visualization or chart type distorts what you see, do you know what you've created? You have created a very pretty lie. That's all it is. All right. Yeah. On the other hand, you can have a statistically perfect chart, you know, but yet one that's so cluttered with crummy design, all crowded in it. Tufte used to call that chart junk, right? It's so full of that nobody can extract the insight in a timely manner. Well, you know what you got there? You've got we have a failure to communicate, as was said on the movie, right? Yeah, look, there really needs to be a happy medium here that avoids both of these extremes, the tug of war. All right, guess what? There is such a thing as a happy medium, I mean. Um, and I'm not talking about a witch who tells jokes. That's a happy medium. You'll get that in a minute. No, okay, sorry. All right, look, the supposed conflict between these two extremes can be resolved, and you resolve it where form serves function, right? We prioritize function over form. All right. We do that first by making sure that you got analytical accuracy. Once again, the brains, right? And then we leverage the form or the beauty to make that accurate information instantly digestible and memorable and visually appealing, appealing or and visually compelling as well. Okay, for BAs, well, this means that your deliverable first needs to be right. And only then should you use design principles to make it resonate. You got that. Got to be right first before it can resonate, right? And if you master the balance between those two, well, guess what? You are going to transform yourself from a data presenter to a data persuader. That's what I'd rather be. Well, part one, called Leveraging Beauty and Brains for Effective Data Storytelling, does just that. In those 5 chapters, hopefully, I'm going to help my readers to start the race, make your case, motivate the base, give it some space until they can put it into place. As you can tell, I really have a lot of fun with that one. Those are the stages of the spectrum. So that's how you get from concept to reality here, Aaron. And hopefully, that's how you're going to resolve that tug of war between beauty and brains, form and function, art and science.
Absolutely, in that. And we know how much you love those colorful names you come up with.
Yes.
And
Well, I
that's
was
just
an educator.
one
Yeah,
thing.
I was an educator for 10 years before I got into IT.
Yes, you
And so,
were.
that colors everything that I do. That's why I love to use mnemonics, acronyms, and alliteration, rhyme, those kinds of things to
Mhm.
make it memorable, to associate something with it. That'll make it easier for you to remember. The more easily that you remember it, the more easily, hopefully, you'll be able to work towards implementing it and create value wherever you go.
Yep, and I think that works very well and everything. And you're excellent at creating those
You're very
rhymes and
kind.
phonics and such that, really draw out, what your points you are making. So, and I will tell the audience here that the images, the thumbnail image for all of our events that are on our website are much better these days because of Dr. Joe. And so we had a
I forgot about
talk.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that
So
now. Oh man, I
He's
forgot all about
he's
that.
started in education. He's a teacher at heart and always will be, I think. Um, but yeah, we had a discussion and he taught me how you can make them just a little bit better, higher resolution, and you know, just make them better so that they'll be more interesting for people um, to actually click on to. So thank you for that. And that was a
You
few
are
years
most
ago,
welcome.
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was. Oh man, that was I want to say that was on the very first part of the pandemic, maybe even before the pandemic, the
Yeah.
end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020. So it was right about the start of the pandemic, if not like right before it. Yeah. Wow. That goes back a ways, doesn't it? I didn't have as much gray hair and I had more hair. Yeah.
So got you to remember something forgotten.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the
Well,
reminder and the shout out. You're very kind to remember my meager contributions, but always want to create value.
yes, and yeah, when you were talking about you can have the most beautiful chart or diagram, but if it's based on faulty data, then it kind of loses its value and they
Absolutely.
nature. Well, when you were saying that, it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite TV shows was Big Bang Theory. And there was an episode where Dr. Sheldon Cooper was the brains of the brains. There were three scientists, but he was supposedly the smartest one. Um, they found a new periodical element based on, his math and everything.
Huh.
And in this episode, he had a whole chart and table and everything, um, to follow his math and everything. And come to find out that the table he was reading from was in metric system and not the US. So his math was
Oh,
all
wow.
wrong. But they still found the element, but they shouldn't have. So
Holy
yes, it
smokes.
was a comedy show.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that. That sounds funny. That it kind of sounds like what happened to the Mars Opportunity rover, that they lost $100 million spacecraft because they were sending the commands in metrics, but the OS behind it was programmed in in inches instead of meters, or vice versa. I forget which one was which, but I want to say, yeah, it was programmed in metrics using the metric system, and they were sending it commands in the imperial system. And because of that, something got mixed up. The fuel consumption ratio was wrong, or the angle of descent was wrong, something to that effect. And we ended up, it ended up setting Mars exploration back by 2 years and
Wow.
destroying a $100 million spacecraft just because some bubblehead, all they had to do was check it ahead of time. They could have fixed it in 20, in 20 seconds or something. So yeah, you talking about that, the metrics versus it kind of reminded me of
Well,
that story. I think I used that story in one of my in
you
one of my
go.
keynotes. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you can't tell the Mars rover to go 500 feet if it doesn't understand feet.
Right. If it thinks meters,
Yeah, if it's thinking
you
meters.
meters. If I go 500 meters, I'm going to go off the edge of this cliff. It's only 100 meters to get to.
There's a
Yeah.
big crater in my way.
Right. And there, bam. No more rover. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a little tangent for us.
Yep. Good one too.
So let's move on to the second section.
Okay.
From numbers to narratives, you address the mindset required for data-driven decisions.
Yes.
Why is adopting a robust data-driven decision-making mindset
Hmm.
so essential for business analysts who often acts as an interpreter of business needs and data output?
Okay. Hmm. Wow. That is a good
You
question,
didn't think
Aaron.
you were coming here for easy questions, did you?
No, no, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. The business analyst, I guess, sits at well, I suppose I can call it like the epicenter, if you will, of requirements and solutions, right? Okay, they're right in the
Mhm.
middle. If the BA lacks a data-driven mindset, well, the entire project could potentially be steered off course by assumptions, by anecdotal evidence, historical bias, and a whole host of other things that can derail it. All right. The data-driven mindset, as I outline it in the second section of the book, as you pointed out, is absolutely essential because, see, okay, it forces the business analyst to consistently anchor every requirement, every decision, every story point, every proposed solution in in verifiable evidence, right? Not in assumptions and suppositions and opinions. And it elevates the BA's role from just being a requirement collector, into a strategic partner. Okay, we all learned about requirements gathering, right? That's very basic, the good old Baylock, right? And knowing how to do that, gather requirements, I mean, all right, it'll make you a pretty good BA, right? Yeah, kind of good. Okay, all right, whatever. Average BA. But, should you be satisfied with just being pretty good or just somebody to say meh, all right? Or average? You know what an average is, don't you? An average, I've heard it said this way. All right, an average is the best of the worst and the worst of the best. Why in the world would you want that? Why settle for that? Why settle for mediocrity when you can do so much better? Okay. My book challenges the reader to do better, to have that mindset, be that exceptional BA. Do not be satisfied with the status quo. Don't be satisfied with just being a requirements collector. Anybody can do that, but strive to be a strategic partner and go a step beyond. All right. When a BA operates with that mindset, they're not just going to go around asking, "What do you want?" They start asking, "What does the data say we need?" Right? And this shift, oh man, it changes the whole dynamic. It shifts the whole conversation from being about subjective wants to objective necessities. That gets you a whole lot further, creates a whole lot more value. And when that happens, requirements gathering, requirements validation, that becomes so much more valuable and robust. It's all in the mindset. The mindset is in seeking out the data to challenge assumptions, to quantify business values. Don't just take them at face value. And that directly contributes to the success metrics of any project that you may lead. You can take that one to the bank. But you see, Aaron, look, ultimately, a data-driven mindset is going to provide the necessary skepticism, and the rigor to ensure that the solutions being developed will actually solve the core business problem. I mean, come on. It's no real solution if you don't really know what the problem is or what problem it is that you're solving, right? It's no solution at all. It just boils down to being ruthless in the pursuit of truth, the truth that the data holds. And for business analysts, oh man, this is gold. It goes way further than just best practice. I think it's a fundamental capability that ensures project outcomes deliver real, measurable business delight rather than financial or operational disaster. That's the tagline that goes with that second section, the title: data denial or data driven, disaster or delight. You know what? I'd rather have the delight than the disaster.
And I think we all would, and completely agree with you that and all business analysts should be looking to be more than a requirements engineer, or
Yes.
that's maybe where we came from, or being the liaison between the business and the technical teams and
Mhm.
that. I know in my organization, our manager today is preaching the super connector, that we
Ooh, I like
connect
that.
people, bring in the resources that a team needs, or if we need an
Yeah,
answer, find the person who has that answer for us, and connect them with our team so that we can progress our work in that. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
I am certainly not advocating or implying that you have to know every single answer. You hit the nail on the head, Aaron.
yes.
I love the way you said it because, you're a connector. You may not know the answer, but you understand the process enough so that you can figure out who does have the answer. You get that from that data-driven mindset that I've been talking about, is in seeing yourself as not just a gatherer of requirements, not just a recorder of information. It's okay. You start off that way, right? When you first, when you're still wet behind the ears, you're still a greenhorn. That's okay. Just don't stay there. Progress to something better. Progress to something more valuable. And again, it all starts with having that mindset that we've been talking about. I love what you said, Aaron. Super connector on target.
I love it too,
Yeah,
and I actually
spot on.
recently did this at work where we did updates to a system in that, and there were two documentation repository that two different departments within
Mm,
our organization was is in charge of.
yeah.
And what I noticed is neither one of them were getting updated correctly, and I didn't know, uh,
Oops.
and I found out that one of them, the team that I thought was in charge of updating that, found out it was another team, and so I had a meeting with all of them and made sure we understood the process,
Right.
how this gets updated and everything, and then assigned a responsibility
Good.
for each of those repositories. Who's going to, am I supposed to do that? Or it was some other BAs, and they took responsibility for it. So I don't have to do that in the future.
Yay.
But, I made sure now that those are going to get updated, as we
Excellent.
continue to do this work and everything. So connecting those people and
Yes.
making sure they understand responsibilities, understand the process and everything.
Right.
So, and that includes the data that's within. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, so I encourage, um, every BA to go beyond requirements. I would say
Amen to
half of
that.
my job is requirements. I do a whole lot
Yeah.
more than just elicit requirements, document requirements, all of that. A
Right.
lot of mine is creating the shared understanding of our work among our team. So the
Good.
developers know what they're developing, the testers know how they're going to test it. Um, and we all are looking at that same vision, and bringing back to what you were saying about from numbers to narratives, and that is, and getting into storytelling is so that
Yes.
we all see the same thing, see that same vision when we are looking at things.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's talk about the discussion around data-driven decisions.
Hmm.
Often involves the tension between your gut feeling and relying purely on numbers.
Yeah.
What is your philosophy on blending intuition with data, and how do you guide leaders along with the BAs who support them
Hmm.
to find that balance?
Yeah. I like that. You know, see, the idea that you must absolutely choose between your gut and the data, rigid wall between the two. No, I think that's a false dichotomy. It's one that needs to be retired. All right. My philosophy, Aaron, is that the most successful decisions are made by leaders who effectively blend the two, right? The gut and the data. All right. Look, data should always lead the conversation. All right. I emphasize this in this section we're talking about. Intuition isn't the absence of data. It's more like the accumulation of decades of implicitly processed experience. Look, you should never ignore that internal alarm bell. That's just a glorified way of saying your gut. All right. Um, but you should also never act on it alone without some sort of empirical foundation. All right. Well,
Point.
should you go with your gut or should you go with your data? Okay. For those who pay attention to their business, their gut might not be all that bad, you know? But in reality, your gut, your intuition, your insight needs to be informed in order to be reliable. And what is it that informs your gut? Duh, data, right? To that point, the the data's role is to act as you might see the ultimate check and balance for tuition, for intuition, excuse me. If your gut feeling, that accumulated wisdom I'm talking about, points you in one direction, well, guess what? The data should be used immediately to either validate or mitigate or outright challenge that feeling. If the data lines up, no problem. You just proceed with confidence. But if the data conflicts, well, then your intuition has just given you a priceless signal to start digging deeper and start asking some smarter questions. You may either continue along the same path if the data is wrong or skewed or whatever, or you might just reconsider your path because of your savvy, your intuition of the business processes, but backed up by the data that shows that there may be some kind of a deviation or an exception to the rule or something like that. Now, for the BA, this means becoming an expert as building decision models that will allow for the testing of a hypothesis, right? Don't get rid of the gut altogether, but treat it as the most valuable hypothesis generator that we've got. All right, the blend, the happy medium between the two, if you will, is about respecting the wisdom but at the same time, subjecting that wisdom and tuition to analytical rigor. It's the collaboration between accumulated human experience on the one hand and objective machine insight on the other. When you put those two together, oh man, that's going to lead to a much stronger, well vetted decision. In other words, refusing to pay attention to bad data and going with your gut is just as important and valid as listening to the sound reasoning behind good data and letting it inform your gut. Okay, part two of my book deals with that. Matter of fact, I use an example from something that happened on September 26, 1983, about a Russian colonel named Stanislav Petrov. Yeah, he was in charge of the Soviet defense um, center at Serpukov. I'm getting some feedback here. Someone's connected twice, I think. But anyway, I use that example to illustrate the point. I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself. I don't know what's happening. Okay, that's better. Thank you, whoever that was. But anyway, um, you know, when you use that, all right, I in part two, I deal with that. Okay, I give you the necessary framework. I challenge you in a in both a practical and an actionable way to adopt that type of mindset I'm talking about through dominance, relevance, significance, surveillance, and vigilance. Or if you want to say it another way, I show you how to look, link, listen, leverage, and learn. That's a whole lot easier to remember, and it's a whole lot better to understand, how do you get to the point where you can tell the difference between when you listen to your gut, when you listen to the data? The point is it should be a combination of the two.
Excellent points and everything. And then I like how you stuck to the five L's in there.
Yeah, had to throw them in there. Yeah, because that's in the book. Yeah.
Yes. And I will also notice that what we've been talking about up to this point in that is that IIBA has a certification in business data analytics,
Cool.
and particularly the last two pillars or domains in that
Hmm.
certification. And I'm bringing this up because Bill Powers is here with us. He's president of the Bluegrass IIBA chapter and has the CBDA certification.
Cool.
Um, but a lot of what we've been talking about here are those last two pillars. And the fourth, fifth pillar is drawing business insights from data.
Mm.
But I really like the last pillar. There's six pillars, right? There are six domains. So
Hmm.
the sixth one being driving strategic direction within your organization for data.
Mm.
And that, so getting to that sixth thing, going beyond just drawing insights from data, and that is how do
Mm.
you get into driving strategic business initiatives
Yes.
within the organization and that. So paying attention, and sometimes it may be paying attention to your gut as opposed to the
Yeah.
data um, and that. So yeah, anybody interested in the CBDA certification, talk to Bill.
Great
He does
class.
Cool.
have that. We will have a
Awesome.
um, study group to help people prepare for that one. So if you're really interested in data, you want a certification in it, IIBA has one. The Bluegrass IIBA chapter, will help you get it.
That's
Yay.
right.
So let's move to your final section of the book,
All
where
right.
you introduce the powerful life framework.
Yes.
Um, First, what does the acronym stand for? And
Okay.
second, can you explain why the fervency pillar, um,
Fervency, you mean?
that one,
Yeah.
is unique compared to the other three?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, life framework. That's the letters L, I, F, and E. Final section of the book. That section is called Bringing Data to Life, LIFE. Those four letters represent the four, what I call the non negotiable pillars that I am thoroughly convinced are required to build a sustainable data centric culture. And that's going to yield real world impact. Okay. Life, LIFE, those four letters. They stand for legacy, integrity, fervency, and efficiency. Now, the other three pillars, the L for legacy, the I for integrity, and the last one, the E for efficiency, are all characteristics that primarily describe either the data itself or the systems that manage it. Okay, starting with legacy, it refers to how data is stored, excuse me, for historical context. In the section, I give a working definition for legacy. That is anything that either supplies or produces data that's already been deployed into a working production environment across an entire enterprise. That's it. It doesn't matter how old it is. You might think of it that way, legacy in the sense of something that came off a mainframe. That's not the sense that I mean it at all, but that's legacy. The I, integrity, that's the reliability of the data. Is it accurate, consistent, and complete? The three characteristics of data integrity. that you may have seen in the Baybach too. All right, the efficiency, we're talking about processes, speed of access, and so forth. But fervency, all right, it's deliberately unique, separate, distinct from the other three, as you correctly pointed out, because it focuses on the human element behind it all, Aaron, the passion, the drive, the enthusiasm of the individual who is wielding the data. All right, fervency, I'm just going to call it the engine of the entire framework. Fervency, if you are fervent, you are hot, you are on fire, passionate about what you believe in and what you want to do. Okay, you approach it with great enthusiasm. That's where the word fervency comes from. Look, you can have perfect data. That's the integrity. Stored perfectly, the legacy, and accessible instantly, the efficiency. But if the BA, the analyst, the leader, the system specialist, whatever term or role or title the individual might have working with it, if that person does not care, if they lack the drive to relentlessly ask why and seek more information, well, let me tell you something. That data is just going to sit there. Okay, not going to be valued to anybody. That the fervency um, ensures that the human mind is actively seeking more business value and passionately advocating for data driven change, right? It recognizes, excuse me, that culture and human motivation are the ultimate amplifiers of technological investment. You see, Aaron, look, it's the dedication and drive that's going to move us to take ownership for the data, for the work we do with it, for the consequences that come when things aren't done right. It involves taking personal responsibility and accountability. It involves caring enough to ensure things are done right. And when you are passionate about what you do, that fervency moves you, drives you, pushes you to infuse your actions, your processes, your procedures, your standards, and everything else in between with a level of integrity and excellence that sees an expectation as a thing to be exceeded, not just met. As you can tell, I am very passionate about this, okay? That, my friends, is what's going to truly bring your data to life. And it'll bring you to life as well.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that as you were doing that and that I go, does anybody think that Dr. Joe is passionate about data?
Just a little. Just a little. Yeah.
All right. I see we're getting a little late on time. We did get started a couple minutes late and everything. I do want to leave a minute or two for questions from our audience and that. But let me get one last question in
Sure.
about to pull all of this together from numbers to narratives clearly
Yeah.
offers a complete solution. For the business analyst in our audience, how does this incredible journey you've laid out from compelling visualization to decision making to the
Right.
life framework, act as a definitive blueprint for professional success?
I like that. Definitive blueprint, you say.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, yes, sir. You know, I believe this book is absolutely a definitive blueprint for BAs. I just love the way you said that, Aaron. Definitive blueprint. I got to say that again. All right, look. Um, hey, that's what it is for BAs because it addresses their entire project life cycle from start to finish. If you think about it, not just one isolated skill. Okay, you can't simply document requirements these days, right? Not just documenting them, you have to know how to sell them. Okay. And you have to ensure that the resulting solution is adopted and sustained. Yeah. You see, as a BA, when it comes to solutions, you know, sometimes you have to adapt the parameters before you can truly adopt the procedures. And sometimes that's the only way that you can become adept at a solution. Get it? Right? Adapt before you adopt so you can be adept. Okay. Right. You can quote me on that if you want. All right.
Some more
So
writing going on.
that's exactly right. All right. So, um, let's see. where was? Oh yeah. So the progression here, okay, from the front cover to the back cover, it is a progression. Taking these three separate parts, these separate sections of my book that we've been talking about as a unified whole. Think of it this way. First, BAs need to master the art of data communication, period, bar none. Part one, leveraging beauty and brains for effective data storytelling. All right. If you can't accurately visualize the current state of your data or the proposed benefit of your data from some visualization that you're intending to create from the data, you sure as shooting are not going to be able to secure buy-in amongst your stakeholders. And you all know as BAs, that's very critical. That's a big battle. If you can't get your stakeholders from concept to reality until after you start the race, make the case, motivate the base, and give it some space, and then and only then is when you can truly put it into place. All right. Secondly, BAs need the data driven mindset we've been talking about tonight, right? That's part two. Driving decisions with data, right? They've got to have that mindset to rigorously challenge those assumptions we talked about. You will be bombarded with assumptions, guaranteed. You'll be bombarded with requirements too. So those assumptions have to be challenged. Those requirements have to be validated. And you know what you do it with? Duh. You do this with objective evidence. And you know what that is? Data. And you need to manage stakeholders, when they are too tempted to rely on opinion. Believe you me, stakeholders have their opinions. And if you don't believe me, well, then start working at an organization as a BA for any length of time, and you will learn that very quickly. All right. Yeah. All right. Look, that's the difference between writing down what they ask for and defining what the business truly needs. Separate those wants from those needs, baby. You do that with that mindset. Okay, refining that intuition, like we talked about it, and informing it with data. And the only way you're going to do that, well, is if you look, link, listen, leverage, and learn, right? That sound familiar. You've heard that before. All right. Finally, the life framework, right? Part three, like we talked about. Okay, bringing data to life. This thing is what provides the framework for sustaining the solution that you have envisioned in part one and executed in part two, right? Envision it, execute it, now sustain it. BAs need to think about the legacy of the data they use, the L, the integrity of the source systems, the I, the fervency that they're going to instill in end users in training, and, well, the fervency they instill within themselves too, right? And E, the efficiency of the new process that's been built. When a BA masters this full journey from numbers to narratives to that transform business to life, right? They're going to transform from a liaison into an indispensable strategic driver of business value. And I think that's one way that you can bring data to life. And that's one way that you can see numbers as more than just numbers. See those numbers as narratives that can transform business. They ought to transform your life too. That's what I'm hoping for. It'll transform your strategy. It'll make you into something more than just a mediocre BA. You want to rise above that, folks. You want to rise above the mundane. You want to be exceptional. You want to be the very best of the very best and blow away the status quo. That's that blueprint we're talking about. And that's my advice to you. Aaron, back to you, sir.
And get your data to tell the story.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I fully agree with you that if you're defining requirements, you're putting solutions into place, but if they're not sustainable, are you truly adding value? And
Mic drop.
so
Yes, absolutely.
don't have
Listen to Aaron. He hit the nail on the head. Obviously, he
Here we
has read
go.
my book. He's read my book. Yeah. Or should be reading my book if he hadn't already.
No, but I know you've got a very good testimonial from a good friend of yours. I believe inside the back cover.
Yeah,
And,
that's exactly right.
so,
That's exactly right. Yes. You
so,
got it here. Yeah, Aaron gave a very kind recommendation. Yeah, so he has seen the book. I'm just being silly.
so I do want to open the floor for anybody in the
Yes,
audience.
please.
Hopefully, you've all enjoyed this conversation. You got a lot out of it. You understand what the book is, and hopefully, we gave you insight as to really wanting to read this book and that because it is very powerful. We have dropped the link in the chat to Amazon, getting the book there. It's in multiple formats on there: Kindle, paperback, hardback,
Yes,
um,
correct.
and that. So you could get it, in any format you want it. Um, but it is, if you're really into data and that, and it's a good book for any BA to have because no matter how um, much or little or what, but every BA, I believe, works with data. At least those of us who works in systems enhancements and that, you're working with data in some point. There's data in all those systems, and you have to
Yes.
deal with it. And that so very good book. I like the madness behind the method, the previous book. Another great book. If you want to get those from Dr. Joe.
Yep,
So
happen to have
there
one
it
with me
is.
right here.
He's got it
Yeah,
right there.
madness behind the method. That's right. Ta-da. Yep.
So yeah, I when I first got that, I couldn't find the book in that because I used the traditional. You think of the madness behind the method. That's what I was calling it.
Oh, the
And
method behind the madness. Yeah. Well, the
yeah,
idea for the title is like when, I challenge people to rethink their professional development tactics, to turn their workforce engagement strategy on its ear. And when people look at it, they're going to wonder, do you have a method behind your madness, or is it more like a madness behind your method? And so that's where I got the idea for the title. And yes, some people think of the way the saying normally goes, the method behind the madness, they're not going to find it. So, yeah,
and that was at first my issue in
right.
that.
I
And
remember that.
I
Yeah.
looked at it a little bit closer and go, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
what's
that's
he
okay. It's a
doing?
common, common mistake. A lot of people made that mistake.
Yeah. So let's hear from the audience in that. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Joe?
Is it on audio? Is there an audio version?
I tell you, my next one, as soon as I can get some time, because I got another book that's coming out, Lord willing, next April. Um, I am in the process of divvying up the first book, Madness Beyond the Method. That one will likely be on audio way before numbers, from numbers to narratives. Uh,
Okay.
I don't I don't have a date yet because
Okay.
I'm also pressed for getting the data governance book out next March. Igniting the Data Dance, by the way, will be the title of the next book. Um, but I'm hoping to try to squeeze some time, maybe sometime in 2026.
Okay.
And I've got to check with because the Madness Beyond the Method was self-published, so I have a little bit more control over that. And I'm able to do I myself am doing the audio. I'm narrating it myself.
Perfect.
So, but for the numbers to narratives, I've got to check with the publisher to see what are the logistics for me to do that and not have to pay somebody thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
If it's going to be narrated, it's going to be narrated by this guy.
Yeah.
Nobody knows this stuff, my own stuff. Nobody knows my own stuff better than me.
Uh,
I tried to. I asked Morgan Freeman, and he was busy. He and Liam Neeson. Yeah, he and Liam Neeson wanted to do it, but yeah, one. No, I'm messing with your head. I'm sorry, that was bad. Yeah, no,
well,
No,
thank
I
you.
can't think of anybody better to narrate these
Yeah.
things, not only because you know the material much more better than anybody else were in that, but you're very passionate about it too. And I'm sure that's going to come out in the narration.
it probably will. I have no doubt.
Undoubtedly in that.
Yeah.
So, um, And, a very good voice for narration and that. So, um,
Well, this voice is
I really sound like this. You see, I turned off my voice filter so you can see what I really sound like. So, not quite as appealing. I'm very sorry. I don't want to deceive anybody into.
no.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
yeah, I'm here all week too, but I ain't gonna quit
So,
my day job and take up stand-up comedy.
we
No.
we did note that he started in teaching. His second um, career evidently was stand-up comedy. Now
Very
gone
short.
into technology
Yeah,
and
that's a very
and
short career.
so any other questions from the audience? I don't want to leave anybody out. Feel free to connect with Dr. Joe, myself on LinkedIn. Bluegrass IIBA chapter is out there on LinkedIn. We have a profile and a company page. Feel free to connect with us. Happy to have you here with us today.
Yes.
Thank you all very much for joining us. Really appreciate that. Last
Yes.
call for questions.
No question here. I just want to say I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Thank you, sir. And if you're ever in the Raleigh area or we see each other at a conference or something, I will most definitely sign it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I made that commitment. Every single book that somebody gets, if they'll come see me or we see each other, I will absolutely sign it.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So you're going to be presenting at BBC in 2026?
I wish, but they
It's
they're
April.
yeah, that well one there's a conference in Prague that is very very close to it, and there's only so many days I can take off work, and they're not able to fly me out there, so that didn't work out this time around, but and then I've got a HCCA compliance and ethics conference in Orlando around that same time, the week after the conference in Prague. Um, and so that would have, even if we could have worked something out on the flight and accommodations, it would have been a little bit too much for me to, because I still have a regular job. I'd have to take off 3 weeks in a row. And I mean, I got vacation out the wazoo, but then there's a whole bunch of other conferences that want me to, I'm supposed to go to Nairobi and India and Denver, Colorado, in 2026.
Told,
So, yeah,
told you all, global jet setting here.
yeah, and I get to go. Probably will be going back to Big Data London, um, so that and possibly Malta as well. So I'm really, really, really
Wow.
looking forward to some of this. And so I had to pick something. It's like the one year that you wanted me to speak, and I was speaking in Hawaii. I had to pick between Kentucky
Going
and
to
Hawaii,
Hawaii.
which one? Yeah. And my wife was going with me, so it was not
Oh,
a
she
very
had a
difficult.
say in it, huh? So Diana, I have to talk to her.
Yes,
I have
she
to
did.
bribe her, huh?
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, it made sense to go to a conference being held in paradise with the lady who made my life paradise. So,
Uh, is
what
she
a
sitting
nice
right
guy.
there next to you? So
No, no, she didn't hear a word I said. I think she's on the other side of the house wrapping Christmas presents, actually.
I could see that you have a den in your house. I kind of picture it like that background behind you and that. I could imagine you got a room like that in your house.
Not exactly, but close. Yeah. Except for the
Full of
big
books.
windows. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a bunch of books, but no big glass windows lining the whole wall. Yeah.
I like those windows.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. At least I don't have to wash them.
So, right, Dr. Joe, thank you
Yes, sir.
very much. Really appreciate it. Love learning about this book, um, and the insights and your desire, your motivations for writing it, and what you want us
Thank
BA
you.
to get out of it. So, really appreciate those insights.
Yes, sir.
Again, the link is in the chat for anybody who wants to get that. Evidently, Bill's going to buy it.
Thank you.
And that. So, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you being here. Please come back and see our other events. We have some lunch and learns. So if you need the noontime, during the business hours instead of an evening meeting, we have those for you as well. So, and Dr. Joe may be back in May. Our 2026 conference is going to be in May. It's May 15th. And we have workshops again this year on the 14th, the day before. But it's not going to have the Bluegrass Business Analysis Conference name anymore, our BBAC name. We lost this. We also have 12 chapters that are coming together to put on this conference in 2026. So 12 communities coming. You're going to meet somebody new there. You can expect 300 to 500 attendees. We're certainly hoping for that much. So hopefully we'll see Dr. Joe there. If not, we will see him in the future. I can guarantee it.
You can count on that. You can count on that, Aaron.
All right. So everybody have a great rest of your week. Thank you for being here. Merry Christmas. Everyone
Merry
have
Christmas
a
to you.
very, very safe and festive holiday season.
Thank you so much for having me on the program, Aaron. It was a real honor and privilege. I'm very grateful and wishing everybody a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas. Not in that order.
Not in that order. Yeah, yeah. You did get a lot of acclimates in the chat. Very informative sessions. Thank yous and all of that.
I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. And like I said, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
Bye now.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.